Coming up on episode 75 of the Upful LIFE podcast.
Because this was the incredible thing back then. Every record store had something special, featured a different kind of label, different kind of artist. So you went in there and everybody knew us somehow, and they always gave us the best stuff. So this was why our record boxes back then were pure gold. It was everything we had in there was collected from around the world. So we were so far ahead of everybody. This is not existing anymore. This thing, but this was great back then.
That was fantastic, and there was no internet to search for anything. We brought out the G-Stone EP, and we had an advertisement in the Straight No Chaser magazine, which did a little bit, and Charles Peterson did a little bit, did some help, of course. But the main breakthrough probably was then to do the remixes. The thing is, we never had a manager. We always did the connections ourselves. So we were actually phoning up people, introducing ourselves. I remember the old story when we were in London, phoning up Ninja Tunes and say, hello, we're here. And we just walked to the office. The same with Wolf Sound. But we always had our business card was the record we had, the G-Stone EP. And then we started to do the remixes. And then the stone somehow was rolling,
I was a little bit scared before I went there because I didn't know if I can deal with the whole situation, millions of people in a tent or in an RV and having to share a shower and all this, But once I was there, it felt amazing. It felt really amazing. And the first night we played was probably one of the best gigs we ever had. The first one on the Slow Sonic stage was just from the sheer energy that was there from the people. We started, there was 200 people. 10 minutes later, there were 2,000 people or even more, I don't know. And then we saw all the art cars in the back coming, and they all made movements. They danced to our set. It was. I get goosebumps talking about it.
It's such a meaningful thing to do. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I just stumbled in, really. Yeah. I didn't know. And then when we arrived, there was a thing said, this is not a festival. Yeah. This is not a typical music festival. Yeah. And slowly I understood what they mean, that it's more like a state of mind, the whole thing.
Yes, indeedy. Welcome to the Upful LIFE podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz, and this is episode number 75, coming at you live and direct from the Vibe Junkie Studios in Oakland, California. Staying alive 75, and let me tell y'all, the vibe is high. So grateful you are tuning in. Yes, indeedy. Episode 75 of the Upful LIFE podcast is proudly brought to you once again by our friends at iamAVL, Independent Arts and Music of Asheville, preserving and promoting the creative community of Asheville, North Carolina since 2012. live stream installations in several area venues. They stream 6 nights a week, several shows on a given night. It makes Asheville the first city in the world with its music scene aggregated onto one channel. 3,500 concerts in the archive, national, local, international. There's tons to explore, and they're based out of the world-class Echo Mountain Recording Studios, where they produce an original series called Echo Sessions. They have 6 seasons on PBS with all kinds of artists, people that have been on the show, like Les Special and The Nth Power and Eric Krasno and members of the Motet. The streams are free to watch and a free service for the bands and artists at the venues that they are installed in. Now, iamAVL is a nonprofit, so people can donate to their efforts to support the arts by going to the website iamAVL.com or scanning a QR code on any recent show in the archive. Passionate about the city they live in? Amazing musical community in Asheville? Support iamAVL. iamAVL.com. Don't stay home without it. Want to say thank you to our sponsor, Love That Baby. LoveThatBaby.net is the home base. Shout out to my man Aaron, the founder and visionary behind Love That Baby. I've been rocking this gear for a couple years now. Anytime I wear the Love That Baby hat, it's like a black corduroy with like a fluorescent infant with sunglasses on it. Anytime I wear it, people stop me, ask me about it, or yell out the shoe or the LTB, which is kind of like code talk that you're down with Love That Baby. They're brick and mortar stores based in Wilmington, North Carolina, but they do ship all over the world. And they make all kinds of handmade goods, hats, beanies, t-shirts, baby gear, sweatshirts, tank tops, all kinds of designs, some Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia adjacent styles, home team. They got trucker hats, flat brims, camos, 5 panels, coffee mugs. You might ask yourself, what is Love That Baby? It's a movement to unite humanity. They created that baby with everybody in mind. No matter who you are, where you're from, one thing that we all have in common is at the end of the day, we're all somebody's baby. So you have to love that baby. I gotta agree. I gotta concur. I love that baby. Through their art, they hope to share life through their lens. Like a baby, some days are filled with tears and others with laughter. So check out lovethatbaby.net. They've got tons of goods, really cool vibe, and I love rocking this stuff when I go out to festivals. So shout out to my man Aaron. Thank you for the sponsor, lovethatbaby.net. Yes, this is really fucking happening. But before we get into the intro, as usual, the Upful update, I'm going to try to keep it short and the intro short because I imagine we have some new listeners that aren't necessarily here for me to pontificate for 15 minutes before we hear from the guests of honor. But I do want to let y'all know the Upful update. I've got a new article out on upfullife.com. It's a detailed feature on Say She She's recent concert here in the North Bay, the Hot Monk Tavern. Shout out to my man Sergio Rios from Oregon, who's also playing in the backing band of Say She She. Had the good fortune of checking that out with my wife a few nights ago, and I wrote an article that Say She She just shared in their Instagram stories. So super stoked on that, super stoked on them. Highly recommend you both check out the band and, if you can, my story as well. Also, going to have Sergio on the pod in the coming months. We have in discussions, just trying to work out the scheduling, so excited about that. And I want to let everybody know, if you're picking up what I'm putting down at the Upful Life podcast, please rate and or review the Upful Life podcast, preferably on Apple Podcasts, but really on any platform of choice. It does a whole lot to send those algorithms in this direction and bring us new listeners, new ears, new souls, and that is a beautiful thing, and we give thanks. At the very least, please smash that subscribe button so you know when something new drops from the Upful Life. And if you have the time and are so inclined and you want to throw me a couple dollars for making you holla, you can go to upfullife.com. There's a support button in the top menu. Send me a Venmo. It's so appreciated. I do this work out of the love and the passion, but I do like to get supported whenever possible. So there's a Venmo link there, and if you want to send money another way, just send me an email. Hit me up at b.gets@upfullife.com, not just to send me a few bucks, but to let me know how you're feeling about the show. Give me any kind of reflections or suggestions or nuggets you loved or constructive criticisms. I love to hear it all. I love to hear from the people. That's b.gets@upfullife.com. And I want to shout out Talia Keys. She's been on the pod. She's the homegirl down in Salt Lake City. She's got a fantastic new single out. It's a cover of the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams. I did a little promo work on this project, and I work with her time here and there, and I'm a big supporter of what she does, so I wanted to give her a shout out and let y'all know to check out Sweet Dreams, Talia Keys, wherever you hear music. Now let's get into episode 75.
Let's roll.
Yes, indeedy. Could let this track ride out forever, because I'm kind of pinching myself. This is an all-timer, and if you had told my 24-year-old self that this was happening, I wouldn't have believed it. It's 2 in a row. Blind Melon last episode I should say, and another honor, privilege, and just absolute thrill to welcome Kruder and Dorfmeister. Richard Dorfmeister, Peter Kruder. I mean, whoa. Now, last time, I had like an equally personal, deeply rooted love letter type relationship with Blind Melon and Roger Stevens. But unlike last episode, I'm not going to do a 15 plus minute introduction. Mostly because I anticipate that there'll be some new listeners, different listeners, global listeners that are maybe not as familiar with the format or my personality, and I'm going to save some of the more like personal rabbit holes and remarks for the Afterglow section, which will come directly after the conversation with Richard and Peter, which just took place the other day on February 15, the morning after Valentine's Day. And I had just a short heads up because, I'd pitched them the idea, maybe coming to the Denver show or even San Diego, but they were worried about travel and time. And, I just Hail Married a Zoom, and they were down. Richard hollered back immediately and said, how about tomorrow? So it was 9 a.m. here, 6 p.m. in Vienna. They're in their studio in Vienna creating. There's a wall of vinyl behind them. It was surreal. And I had to comport myself as a journalist and a professional, but also I just was, having somewhat of an out-of-body experience at the same time. Now, many of my listeners are at least moderately familiar with Kruder and Dorfmeister. If only the music, maybe their story, you're going to be intimately familiar in just a few minutes. But for, purposes of just setting the groundwork, I'm going to read from the All Music biography by a fellow named Paul Simpson. The resident advisor bio is super dope, quite lengthy, and as is the Kruder and Dorfmeister bio. And I was even just going to read their own bio, kruderdorfmeister.com/about. But even that would take a while, and I think something more succinct is appropriate here, since you're going to hear a lot of this in their own words momentarily. But just to lay the groundwork a little bit, we'll do the standard All Music. Austrian producers and DJs, Kruder and Dorfmeister helped shape the sound of the after-hours electronic music genre known as downtempo during the 1990s, and their presence has loomed large over the scene ever since, despite their relatively small discography as a duo. First appearing with the 1993 EP G-Stoned, the first release on their similarly titled record label, G-Stone, the pair established a relaxed, organic sound influenced by acid jazz, dub, and mellow hip-hop. 2 mixtape albums, both released in 1996, additionally embraced atmospheric drum and bass. They built up a lengthy resume of remixes for a diverse array of artists, from Roni Size, David Holmes, Depeche Mode, Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. Several of these and more were collected and mixed into the K&D Sessions from 1998, which was met with acclaim upon release and continues to be one of the best-selling downtempo trip-hop releases. The two producers have remained active with solo work and additional projects, most notably Tosca, which is Richard Dorfmeister's duo with Rupert Huber, and Peace Orchestra, which is Peter Kruder's side project. He has numerous others. And then they came back in 2020, unearthing material that had been shelved for 25 years for an album called 1995. They're both born in Vienna in the late 60s. They formed their eponymous duo in 93. They founded G-Stone Recordings that same year. The cover art for their debut EP paid tribute to Simon and Garfunkel's Bookends, and gradually became iconic in its own right. So with the collection's success escalated, the demand for proper K&D full-length was high. So the pair remained elusive and kept busy with individual projects, and then came back around and decided to celebrate the release of 1995, and subsequent to that, the 30th anniversary tour, which is ongoing, and that's kind of where we pick up in this interview. Now, without getting into my own personal story too much, I would like to just add that I wrote an article about them when they came through Burning Man and San Francisco show, a very lengthy piece, which they somehow found and shared, called it brilliant. It was one of the great honors. I've referenced it a time or two on the pod, but I think they kind of planted the seed and for them to, want to speak with me, because they really haven't done a ton of interviews for cats that have been around for 30 years. So I was honored and really touched and that they not only chose to speak with me, but gave me over an hour of their time together in Vienna. And, if you're curious about that, I'll drop the link to my article. It's lengthy and takes you all the way from Burning Man to San Francisco and many points between and the Wayback Machine. But in that article, I explain how K&D back in the late 90s were like my gateway drug. Shout out Ross Kaufman for playing me the K&D sessions for the first time. Along with LTJ Bukum, K&D basically gave me the keys to the kingdom, and it was a full circle moment because it wasn't until I went to Burning Man 11 years ago for the first time that I really like fell in neck deep to electronic music. But the embryonic seeds and the very, very like, earliest experiences I had with the music can be traced back to K&D, Bukum, DJ Shadow. And so it was a full circle moment for me and for them, as they'll explain in there. And that's what made this so much symbiosis and kismet, was just how it all came together. And I've been waving the K&D flag for many years, going back to those early days in the 90s, like getting hip to it, and never would imagine that I would have an opportunity to speak with them. So I kind of I made a lengthy outline, but I rolled the dice and kind of let them talk about what they wanted to talk about. And they did a lot of talking, and it was great stuff. So I am very proud to present this conversation with Kruder Dorfmeister from Vienna on episode 75 of the Upful LIFE podcast. I'll have some more thoughts on the back end of this chat, but buckle up. We going in. Yes, indeedy. Greetings. Today is a very special and a really important day in the history of this podcast and in my life as a journalist. I am joined all the way on the other side of the world in Vienna, Austria, by the great Kruder Dorfmeister. Richard and Peter, thank you for your time and welcome to the Upful LIFE podcast.
Thanks for having us. Hi there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I'm pinching myself. It's 9 a.m. here in Oakland, California, and it's 6 p.m. out there. We're in Austria, and the two of you in a studio with a wall of vinyl behind you. I just have to say, this is like life outside of life in a lot of ways. And if I could tell my 22-year-old self that this was happening, I probably wouldn't believe it. But again, a big honor and privilege. I want to start with the here and now. You're celebrating 30 years around the world. I had the good fortune of seeing you twice in September here in the States. I know you've been all over Europe. Can you tell folks about what the 30th anniversary tour is, the audio visual component, how you approach, performing your whole career and also keeping it relevant for today? Take us through the 30th anniversary tour.
We basically started with the idea to do it, and then we kind of mapped out a plan how to play the show, incorporating all the styles that we did over the last 30 years. And we have a great visual artist, Jascha Süß, who does the visuals, and he's actually living right next to the studio, so it's very convenient. And together we developed the show, and the version you saw in the States is already like version 6 of the show. So we continue to develop it, exchange tracks, exchange visuals, and just making it also more interesting for us over the period we play it. That's what we basically did for the last year and a half.
Yeah. No, it's interesting phenomenon because we always work out the show to get it right, and when it's really perfect, then we have to change it.
Yeah, once it's change it. Yeah.
Well, it was quite a overwhelming and emotional experience when I went, and certainly in San Francisco. And one thing I noticed when you read on social media, people professing their adoration and their thanks and their just love for Kruder and Dorfmeister. And what I realized is my story is like thousands of others around the world, where your music was a gateway drug. it opened the doors of perception for so many people around the world. And when you read the comments of people, now I'm in my mid 40s and we're coming back to these experiences and the songs that soundtracked different parts of our lives, to hear them, in the flesh with the Josh Asus's work, encapsulating your careers visually, all the images and eras. It's a really a magnet. It's like a concert. It's bigger than a DJ set. It's an experience, and I was so blown away by the intention and the sort of emotional nature of the journey. And you mentioned, Peter, about playing the different styles. You have so many styles. I mean, the show I saw had the down tempo, had the drum and bass, had house, even got into some like out there jazz. How do you lay that out? Like, how do you plot a journey that's between the beats per minute and the different geographies and generations? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, how we do it, that's of course a secret. We can't give that for. But we just realized that we've been DJing for 30 years probably.
Yeah.
And we just found out that we bore ourselves with sets that have the same sort of style for 2 hours. Like you play a house set, or if you can play a funk set or a drum bass set, but after a while, it misses something. So we somehow said, okay, let's combine these styles and bring them all together under one roof as a concert, as you said, in a concert format.
Mm.
And ideally we do that with the DJ thing as well, but it needs, of course, some preparation. But at the same time, we want to keep it a bit open to be able to improvise. Because I mean, when we started the first 20 years, we played without any rehearsal. We just played fully improvised. There was no talk about the set. Yeah, so this changed in the last years because we just found out we have more power if we're prepared.
Mm. Yeah, and it's the thing is to make it flow like it does. It really needs a lot of preparation and a lot of also feeling the crowd and feeling the moment and all this, and this is why we continuously change things in the show and also edit them differently, and then we see, okay, there's this is great, but there's a gap, then we lose people here, then we change it around again. So it's a long journey to get there. But now we have to clear, as we told you, the secret.
Yeah, or perhaps we're just too sensitive. I mean, perhaps if you say, okay, I'm the great DJ and I just play whatever I want, I don't care about the style or the crossfades and whatever. I just play and that's it. But I think our quality level or our level, craftsman level, if you want to name it like that, is so high that we always have to work to get on this level again that we used to have, or that we still try to have.
I really didn't at all realize that there was an element of improvisation at play, only because when the audio visual and you're working together and you're plotting out the show, normally with like a rock band, all that stuff is timed and the pyro and the lights and everything. So to be feeling the crowd and to make a choice to make a left turn or to pull another track out that you maybe hadn't done, that kind of keeps it fresh and keeps it unique to that particular night, which I think is really important. And obviously you're conscientious of that, because if you're on the 6th or 7th version of this particular show on this tour, then obviously it's a work in progress. And when I was listening back to the Belgium show from November, it was, considerably different from the San Francisco show in September. There were similarities, but it was different.
Thing is, we play the show with Ableton, and so we have parts, we have stems, we can play things differently, but also we can work it completely differently with the EQs and the effects. And so you can, if you want, you can really push a song, or you can also take it down. So there's a lot of possibilities with if we do it like we do it now with the it's even. There's so much more possibilities than playing a normal DJ set with Ableton. So that's and we really we do this with Ableton now since a long time. Really, the live stuff, and so we have literally banks of effects and tons of tricks we can do to the audio.
Yeah, it's like an instrument. It's really like an instrument. Because when I started with it, I was like, it was too loud, the effect, or the echo delay was too heavy, and that wasn't necessary. And once we had the earplugs, because we then really started to have the monitoring, the in-ear thing that you hear exactly, then you found out that just a little is enough. Yeah, but because if it's blown up, you hear every detail. So you had to learn to work this sort of electronic piece of equipment as an instrument, and that you can only learn it by using it live. Because if you do it at home, you say, okay, I can play that, but then if you're live and you're nervous, and all the factors that come together when you play, and or there's a mistake, which puts you in a situation where you might lose your confidence. All these things that are coming together live play a big role. So the more sure you're about your instrument, the better you are, or the more you know what can happen. I remember we played in New York once, and there was a loose cable, so we lost the connection to the computer and to the interface, because it was trembling so heavily that the cable just lost itself somehow and got out. And to deal with these situations, you have to have a lot of experience, because otherwise you just freak out. Say, what can we do? Help me! So you have to somehow be cool and have it has to be for the audience. It has to be like, it's all cool. It's all planned. Even if there's the biggest mistake.
Yeah. We had this also. We had on the last leg. We had 2 times our computer crashed, but for one night his computer crashed, so I continued to play. And the next night, my computer crashed, and and of course we don't want the audience to realize that or witness that in any shape or form, and so it's always exciting.
and people don't care about technical problems.
Nobody cares about it, and they shouldn't. So that's totally the thing.
Well, people don't care, but they're understanding of the limitations of technology, and I'm sure that y'all are up there and you can kind of mask it and make it so that people don't really notice, because you are familiar with the machinations of the equipment, that you don't get freaked out. You just kind of say, okay, this isn't working, we're going to do this. It probably helps to have 2 of you up there, so if one of you is freaking out, the other one can be kind of chill. And I wanted to ask, because you mentioned you have so much possibilities now with Ableton technology, etc. And I think that, and I say this from my perspective, what I always love about Kruder and Dorfmeister music is you do more with less. You don't overdo everything. It's very subtle and doesn't overpower. And I would think that the limitations of the primitive equipment in the early days, in the G-Stone days, when you just had a couple of items to work with, you had to do more with less. That's all you could. Now you have the whole arsenal. You got every synth, every patch, every plugin, every drum sound, at your fingertips on a little card, right? Do you find it harder to restrain yourself from that doing more with less? Are you tempted to use all the things, or is there a discipline to keep it in the aesthetic of not overpowering and not being just bombs and volume and echoes?
Yeah, when we're so slow, it takes us 2 years to learn a program. So we stick with one.
No, it's just what is really the biggest difference is the undo button, and this is actually what we didn't have back in the days. So back in the days we had to record every mix we did, we recorded to that, and we did always the dubs. When we did dubs, we did it always live. So it was a matter of there was an excitement when you recorded the track finally, and you did 10 passes until you had one that was perfect from the start to finish. And this energy is something that is not easy to have when you do things in the modern world now.
Yeah, I think it comes from the original technology where you just had the multi-track, and you had to perform on that 5 or 6 or 10 takes, because otherwise you couldn't do too many takes, because otherwise you would have to copy the tape to get the to maintain the quality, because if you run it too often, it would lose the magnetic parts of the tape. So you had to perform on time at the right time. And since we coming a little bit from that school, I mean, we started with the home recording and some as a revolution against the expensive studio and the producer and all the people who want to tell you what to do. That's when we started. But when we grew up, we saw how it works in the old school way, which is a difficult way to record something. But it was a good school somehow to be aware of that, of the difficulties of the old way of recording somehow.
But it is also that what was interesting that when we started out, we had a sampler and a small mixing desk. We didn't have any EQs except for one on the mixing desk. We didn't have any compressors, nothing. So like on the K&D session, everything you hear, there's not even one compressor on the stuff. So and back then we had a Fender Rhodes, for instance, and at a certain point the Fender Rhodes was kind of boring, just the sound. So we started, okay, what can you do with the Rhodes? You put a space echo on it, you do this with it, and things. You have one instrument and you try it in a million ways, and this makes also for a good sound and for a sound that is more yours than having this vast thing of plugins and presets and whatever. So it's more. I remember basically. I remember everything when I listen to the old stuff. I remember everything how it's done. I wouldn't remember everything of the new stuff how it's done, because once I use plugins, that's a different world. But we hardly use plugins. It's a different world.
I mean, what you have to understand if you do music is after a while, you have a plugin, you have some Arturia matrix, whatever, a great synthesizer in a VST format, and you have a sound which is a great sound, and I think it's really important to understand that you don't take the sound as it is, and we always had, like, we recorded a Rhodes, but then it turned out to be something completely else. So to mess around things or run it through effect pedals, resample it, it's like making a copy of a copy, and suddenly something else comes out of it. So this sort of approach was always important, I think.
Oh, definitely. And I've actually listened to you talk to another journalist about that a little bit, how like the stakes are higher because of the tape and the limitations, and you got to get the takes right. You don't have the undo button, and that sort of like raises the stakes or the energy to get a great take versus knowing you can do it as many times as you need for as long as you need, and there's no pressure, and maybe there's like a not the same energy. And I love that about the then and now. I found y'all, excuse me, when I was young and just finding lots of music, and this was a whole new world to me. So I found it really interesting to sort of trace y'all's roots. I'm sure you've told the origin story more times than you can count, but my listeners probably don't know. So I want to go back to Dr. Richard, PM to the K.
Mm-hmm.
When y'all found each other, as a matter of fact, and I may be mistaken, but it was maybe a broken sampler that one of you sought the other's professional opinion, right?
There was a guy in Vienna who was an A&R for a record company here, and he had the idea to do a sampler called Danube Dance. And he invited all the DJs and producer that he knew, and he asked me if I would like to produce two of some very big DJs back then in Vienna, Arno and Makossa, and they were really cool, great DJs and superheroes, actually. And I said, yeah, of course I do it. And once I started the song, they came with tons of samples and another sample, another sample, another sample. At a certain point, my sampler was full, but we didn't have half of the song. So I think one of the guys said that he knows another guy who has a sampler, and he can call him, and maybe he comes by and borrows us his other sampler. And this other guy with the sampler was Richard. And he came to the studio, and he set up his sampler and explained it to me, and then I finished the song, and that's how we basically met.
Yeah, and then I said $500 an hour is a top business, really.
Then I beat him up and threw him out. Kept the sample.
I love that.
Take the whole equipment. Take the whole equipment. Get out of
But
here.
you didn't know at that time that this was going to be a musical partnership, right? You were just working on the compilation.
This interesting thing was we didn't know that at all. And then we had another meeting at a friend's place, Konstantin, where Richard played me his contribution to this sampler, and the very weird and or sad thing or crazy thing at the moment was he used the exact same sample as Massive Attack did for Daydreaming.
No, for Safe
from Harm.
Safe from Harm.
And I had from Helmut Lang, the designer, I had a promo tape of the album before it came out. So we sat together, and he played us his song.
With the Billy Cobham sample.
With the Billy Cobham sample, very proudly. And I listened to it and I said, it's really great, but I have bad news for you. Massive Attack just used that sample. So,
Yeah.
And back then, if somebody used the sample was retired. You didn't touch the sample. It was a code of honor. You had to, if somebody you never, and so it was rather sad. But then Richard went to London to study in London. And we kept in contact, and on a visit back in Vienna, he played flute on a track that I did, and this is what became definition of the G-Stone EP. And then at a certain point, we were in contact, and Richard thought that he's maybe thinking about coming back to Vienna, and I sent him this photo of Richard Ableton with Simon and Garfunkel, and said, "Come back and let's do a record where we can put this our faces instead of where we copied that cover basically, and that's what he did.
I love that story. I love how you lured him back with the Simon and Garfunkel, because that was one of the first things when I was young and saw the image. Of course, I likened it. I remember that from my parents' record collection, but I didn't know the story until well later. I also want to hear about Richard. You drove back. You showed up in your Peugeot with all your stuff, right? And that was the dawn of G Stoned, right?
Yeah.
Take me back to that period. It's like 92, 93. Sampling is still in its relative infancy as far as the art form.
Well, it was suddenly affordable. We have to. I mean, relatively affordable. It was still expensive for us. But when the sampling thing started already in the 80s, but we couldn't. We just jumped in around 91 or something like that, and then took it from there. But we didn't know what's going to happen. There was nobody's telling us, "Hey guys, great, just continue." Everybody said, "Learn something serious," you know. And it was a complete venture to continue with this music thing. It was completely unsafe. So, but it was a movement. There was a record. There was a record shop in Vienna called Black Market, which was sort of a meeting point. All people who were somehow interested in music, DJs, everybody was in his shop. And somehow we were always able to get all the the promos, the white labels at the time. It was very important to get this stuff early, limited style, and so there was some movement happening. Somehow there was people involved like Rodney Hunter, Patrick Pulsinger, people like friends who just were hanging out in clubs and then doing music the whole day in the studio, was living inside the little apartment where the studio was. It was actually we were living in the studio and that's why the original bedroom rockers thing is coming from, where we just did that all the time, basically. And then we went to a club. It was a bit unhealthy lifestyle, I have to say, but somehow we survived it. and then suddenly we got this connection. We brought out the G-Stone EP, and we had an advertisement in the Straight No Chaser magazine, which did a little bit, and Charles Peterson did a little bit, did some help, of course. But the main breakthrough probably was then to do the remixes for mainly Giles and the people from Ireland and from Mute Records, because the thing is, we never had a manager. We always did the connections ourselves. So we were actually phoning up people, introducing ourselves. I remember the old story when we were in London, phoning up Ninja Tunes and say, "Hello, we're here," and we just walked to the office. The same with Wolf Sound. But we always had our business card was the record we had, the G-Stone EP. So that helped. And then we started to do the remixes. And then the Stone somehow was rolling,
And at the same time, we played literally in every village where there were two turntables, but literally in every village around in Europe. And then in 95, we came the first time to the US, and we played also like I don't know how many shows in 10 days or something like this, crazy, in front of 20 people, 30 people, something like that.
Yeah, but it was a movement.
Yeah,
it was a do-it-yourself movement. It was like a loud minority idea that you do it all yourself. And you have this sort of jazz people in London, and you have these people in every country. There were some bunch of people and promoters who were somehow young people like us, like mid-20s. Nowadays it's already old, but mid-20s was young, and to do it yourself and meeting people, connecting with people, and building from there. And that's what we did.
And we had, like for instance, our first tour was organized by the wonderful Paul Craven. He did a magazine called On the One. This was our first cover. We were the first time on a cover, which was incredible. And basically we slept on his couch. So it was kind of like that. We flew economy to the States, slept on the couch and stayed there for a couple of days and drove to Seattle and everywhere with the car. It was a fun time.
I remember it was freer. It was freer in America. When we were flying, it was just pre 9/11. We didn't have any. I think there was no visa. And there was no. Actually, there were no check. There were no real checking. It was easy at the airport.
Really
it was fantastic.
Yeah, a different time for sure.
Different time. That's
And there's one great story. I have to tell it again. It's about the Playboy magazines. So we went to San Francisco, mid-90s. When San Francisco was still okay. Yeah, you had all these secondhand stores, record stores, and in one store there was a basement where they had old sort of magazines and old 70s and 80s Playboy magazines.
60s, 70s,
the good time of Playboy magazine. So we said, okay, all right. And it was $1 each. Yeah.
And they had the most amazing covers and inside with fold out pages and just amazing. Yeah.
And then, okay, Peter bought a bunch, I bought a bunch, and we put them into some boxes and we're sending them over to Austria. So we got to the post office, send them over. It was two big boxes. Yeah. And you know what? It took ages to arrive in Austria because it was somehow at the customs. And we said, why does it take so long to arrive at home? And then we found out that probably everybody who was working at the customs was going through the Playboy
magazines for months or even longer. And then once they were finished, they sent them. Yeah. But we did, this was the sport back then. Every town we went to the record stores, we went to the second-hand stores, we bought all the old records, we went to the new stores, we bought because this was the incredible thing back then. Every record store had something special, featured a different kind of label, different kind of artist. So you went in there and everybody knew us somehow, and they always gave us the best stuff. So this was why our record boxes back then were pure gold. It was everything we had in there was collected from around the world. So we were so far ahead of everybody. This is not existing anymore. This thing, but this was great back then.
That was fantastic, and there was no internet to search for anything. It was really up to you how much you knew about records, or how much you read liner notes or artists. And in books, we didn't have really books about it all thing. Perhaps a bit, but not really. So all we knew was probably from the record covers. Which studio. All the great jazz funk musicians, and this knowledge was somehow gold, because remember when from 1979 on, the whole sort of great funk and jazz and groove movement went downhill with the new wave, punk new wave, and the whole 80s. All these musicians, they were broke. Yeah, some of them got rediscovered in the 90s, but it stopped. You can see it, like the last probably year was probably 1980. And then you don't find this sort of vibe of these records anymore, unfortunately. But at the time, it was still somehow sometimes a bargain. So because there was no information, so you had to know, and then you could find some records. And we knew some people who were even much better with information. So we had a little. We were working on it, but there are some other people who really. There's this famous story about. With Rainer Trübe, Rainer Trübe, the DJ from Germany. And we went to Brazil. I think it was our first time in Brazil. And he was famous for, he's a big sort of collector guy, well respected in this collector circle, Charles Peterson, Nicola Conte, and all these people. And we went to Brazil, and he said, yeah, let's go there. And
we walked on the street, and there was a shopping mall, and he walked and he looked at us and he said, I think we have to go inside there. I feel that there's a record store in there. And we walked inside, and at the very end of the whole mall, there was a tiny little record store, and they had only CDs on top, but under the CDs they had crates of records, and we found amazing records there. Yeah, Rainer has a sixth sense for records.
Yeah. So we took it really seriously, the whole thing. And it was about samples as well, about finding good stuff that nobody had, or good beats. And we're still looking for beats, and beats which are off the wall. That at the time there were some beats records. I remember things like Ultimate Breaks and Beats. It was called.
And there were a lot of beats records, but mostly with stuff that everybody knew anyway. So.
Yeah, you hear it with all the 90s hip hop thing. These sounds.
Yeah, when Breakbeat Lou put out that Ultimate Beats and Breaks, it was controversial because the old school people felt like y'all had to find the breaks, and then to put all the breaks on one record, not everybody appreciated that in the culture here. So I wanted to ask, because I think of Vienna, especially like back then, is like techno from Berlin, or like maybe like hardcore from Amsterdam, right? And y'all are talking about, beat digging, vinyl records. You're talking about the jazz, funk, soul, Blue Note, Verve, Creed Taylor, Rudy Van Gelder, like really deep. Where does that come from? How do y'all, because you were in a hip hop band, right, Peter? So you were plugged into hip hop, and you already mentioned you played flute. You're a multi-instrumentalist. Where does that inspiration, or what puts the battery in your back to go digging for beats, to become vinyl aficionados? What's the influence or inspiration for that?
Originally, it was just finding good tracks. It wasn't about the sampling. It was about like having super rare, whatever, Eddie Harris. Stuff that people didn't find. They were rare, or Undisputed Truth.
So if I sing broken and blue,
I don't know, all this stuff, Norman Whitfield.
Get up and let your reputation sit the while.
Whatever, all the CTI, some of the CTIs were hard to get. Not talking about ECM, because we were looking for that, but there were so many stuff that was hard to get. So it was about information, and it was about the tracks, the cool grooves, things, whatever. Jimmy Castor Bunch, or good stuff. Billy Cobham, all that, George Duke, whatever. Yeah, you name it. It's Big World, Herbie Hancock, whatever. And to find the right tunes, this was like a school here.
But like originally for me, my mom was already a record collector. So my mom has tons of music, and she loves Brazilian music and all this. So I kind of grew up with that kind of music. And when I started sampling, my record collection was basically too new for sampling. My record collection started in with rock in the 70s, so I bought Queen and that stuff when I was little, and then she had more like some interesting stuff that wasn't on my plate back then. And in the early sample days, everybody sampled funk, James Brown and all this, but this got boring pretty quickly because all those breaks you heard them everywhere. And then we started to look at jazz, and jazz was more interesting but actually from the flavors, the way the people played and what kind of stuff they played, and also even much better timing, because jazz people are super straight, and it's for sampling and looping. This was heaven, because funk is like, funk starts with 110 BPM and ends with 120 at the end, some of it. But the jazz people are like straight. This was really, for me, it was a total revelation when I found out, oh, wow, they play like super straight, and I can loop a bar here, I can loop a bar there, and I don't, because normally you didn't have a time stretching function in the early samplers, so we had to pitch it. And once you had to pitch it to make a loop,
there was this interesting phenomenon.
Wow.
Because with this looping and adjusting the thing, because there was a sort of headroom of stretching. So if you would try to adjust two samples, you could probably pitch 2 or 3 beats at 3 parts,
sense
3 for up and down.
Yeah.
And the other one as well, but if that wouldn't match, then it was a sign to get something, to try something else, you know. But nowadays you can pitch everything together.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
And what I wanted to say is that with the sample, it from a certain point on, it got further, because we found out that you get good sounds, especially on soundtrack records, because it was always important to get the instruments without beats as well. Because if there are beats on or voices on, you can't really work with that. So you had to have stems, and the only official way to get stems was to find them on records, and it was easier to find them on soundtrack stuff. Yeah. But then again, you would find them on easy listening music or on country or wherever.
Yeah.
So
we were ruthless where we found our samples. We looked everywhere. For me, also, like we did a lot of digging at our friends' places. You know, we had a DAT recorder, small DAT, the DAT machine, and we walked there and we spent nights at friends' places going through the whole collection. But I did this everywhere. You know, I did this at collectors, but I did it also at totally normal people who had kind of shitty records. But still, there was something everywhere, and this is kind of like also it made our stuff maybe a little bit more special in a way that we dig in places where nobody else was digging. So yeah.
And it was a lot of work. I remember I did it for a couple of times in a record store, because I knew the guy there, an American guy, and he had for a certain limited amount of time, he had a store in Vienna with really super obscure stuff. So I went there and he said, okay, you can record. I brought my little DAT recorder, and put it on the amp with the record player. But then you had this pile of records, and you have to put them out, you have to go through them, you have to put them back again, and you have to be quick, because otherwise it takes weeks. You have to be quick and to see, there might be something at the beginning, or there is something, might be an ambient part, and check record next. And if you at these sessions, we probably were scanning 500 records at once. Yeah,
but the cool thing back then was also with the records that you saw the thing. We at a certain point you had a total eye. Okay, there's a break, there's the breakdown, there could be a beat. So it was like skipping through the records, like you knew exactly, the way the grooves looked, there might be a break.
Wow, you could actually look at the vinyl and the cuts and notice a drum break. Wow.
Yeah. And you just by it's if you look at the records where there's a drum break, you always see it. It's always a little bit lighter. Just the way the grooves go, it looks a little bit lighter. And then when the whole arrangement is there again, it's darker. Yeah, that's what it is.
And then it was, of course, about album covers. You know, normally in shops, it doesn't matter the music. If the graphic is good or remarkable, it normally gets sold. The better the outfit, the more.
Very true.
The more somehow it's worth something, you know. And going all through these records, we were able to acknowledge this the value of a good record cover. What makes a good record cover? If you see thousands of record covers, then you somehow develop a certain feeling for covers. That had a big input on ourselves, besides the music, you know, the photos, graphics, the way it's done, how is it done, what format does it have, all these little things. We love that. We still love that. So it's great that the vinyls have been coming back for the last years, which is great for us, because we still are completely into this. I remember we said, kill the CD. We were like, save the vinyl. We were save the vinyl movement. So we avoided to buy a CD for quite a long time, but then you had to. It's the same, like you have to have a mobile phone, you know?
Yeah, it seems like vinyl has overtaken CDs now in a commercial and in terms of metrics of units sold, which you would have never believed that years ago. And also interesting that y'all traveled to Brazil I always hear about Brazil. You know, I hear Giles Peterson, Jay Dilla at the end of his life when he was very sick, went there record shopping. Madlib talks about it often. Seems like Brazil is like a hub, diggers and sample fiends like yourselves. And I always just find it interesting that it's always referenced. And same with the covers. I can't count how many DJs have told me that they've just bought a record off the cover image. They just feel it, know it, and inevitably they'll find some gold in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to, because I know that y'all were really only working with like a small Akai sampler and like a MIDI controller and like an Atari computer, right? That was like the original chain of command, if you will. And at what point in time do you start like evolving your rig? Like, is it after G Stoned, like for DJ kicks, or was that your rig all the way through the sessions?
It was once we had a little bit more money, which was just could afford, and we just piled up just to stack it up, because then we had a second sampler, and then we had a third sampler to have more sampling time.
Yeah.
And that was the key, because we still didn't move. We didn't have a multi-track, so we were simulating the multi-track thing with the samplers.
And we both bought a Mackie desk in, I think, 95 or something like that. And we kept this until 2000. And then we bought a different mixer.
And I think we were lucky to go to Japan in mid-90s, because the UFO guy, the guys invited us to Japan. And we were like, wow, Japan. And we went to equipment store and we bought
two RKS.
We bought the RKS 1000 there.
No, what was it? The 1100.
The 1100. And it was a big, what was it?
Yeah. No, the 3200. The 3200.
We had already the 900, 1100, and the 1000. It was a great machine.
And
then we bought the 3200, and that was another level.
Another level. Yeah. But it was rather cheap in Japan to buy it in Japan, and we had a connection here with a shipping company, and they shipped it over, and it was great.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible how much we did on that machine.
Yeah.
We really used these machines.
Wow.
We really used the machines.
It's just for somebody who doesn't know. Back then, you had to you found the sample on a record, so you had to record the sample into the archive. Then you had to put it onto a keyboard, so that you can play with it. From the keyboard, you had to put it into the computer, then you could loop it, and then you could tune it. So this was to do these steps alone took you 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So for us to make a beat, it was at least a day. But I mean a beat, I really mean the beat, not the whole thing. I just mean literally the rhythm track. It took a whole day. And so you had to choose very wisely what you use, because otherwise you were just wasting your time. So this, you got a really good ear at a certain point for this sample will work. This will be worth the effort to put it in, to tune it, to all of this. So in the beginning, I there was tons of roads going nowhere, literally nowhere.
It's very punk rock. It's like the DIY.
Yeah. I mean, there was no school. But nobody was explaining to us how to produce a record.
Yeah.
We just somehow we thought we know how it works.
Yeah.
We said to ourselves, we said, we know how to do it, but we didn't really know. We just did it.
But that's a very important thing that what you just said. It was all DIY, and this was the only thing that we kind of took from the whole techno movement that was here, because that was also very hands-on, do-it-yourself, everybody. So that was the only thing that we kind of got as an inspiration. And then we thought, because we shopped, actually, we made a tape of the G-Stone EP, and we shopped it to a couple of people, and literally nobody wanted us. And then we said, okay, and everybody's doing it themselves. Let's put up the money and do it ourselves. And this is
they said you have to change your name, because they said Kruder Dorfmeister sounds like a transport company or something like that. So, but we somehow said, okay, now we do it the way we thought it's right. with the cover. Then we went to the record plant because there was no mastering. We just went there for the cut, and nobody was understanding us really. And they thought, they always, I mean, we got the feeling that the people think, what this guy's doing, it's going nowhere anyway. But somehow we believed it, and then it was building up. And after the DJ Kicks thing, when we went to Berlin and met, well, actually it was different. It was different. We were playing in Brussels, DJ style, and there was suddenly, and it was relatively successful already. All self-organized, no management, nothing. And then we played in Brussels, and there was one guy of the K7 people at the time was coming backstage, completely drunk he was, and somehow blah, 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 blah. But somehow the connection kept on, and that was leading to the DJ Kicks release. And the DJ Kicks release was leading then with K7 to the K&D Sessions release, because Peter said, okay, we have to, all these great records from Ireland and from Giles with this nice cover with the remixes that, I mean, they did probably 500 pieces or printed perhaps 1,000, not more, very limited for DJs, just for promotion somehow. And we have to, and then it was lost. Nobody, it was just forgotten. And so we said, okay, we have to put that together as an album to keep it alive somehow. And that's why we did the K&D Sessions. And from then on, you know, it was just wild. It was, the first years were ultra wild, and it's still, people are still aware of this record. They're still somehow, they know, these guys from Vienna, yeah, they have a certain style. This is cool. Somehow it's not commercially sold out, really. It's still somehow underneath, but it's somehow a quality idea that they still keep. That's what we're still on, somehow at this, taking the profit from that time somehow.
First of all, thank you for tracing the line from DJ Kicks through the K&D Sessions and onward, because I think that is, you know, I worked backwards. I was in college at 20 years old, got the K&D Sessions, then got DJ Kicks, then got G-Stoned. So, you know, it worked in reverse. That said, I really wanted to ask, because I've read this story where after you're very successful with DJ Kicks, and there was a journalist that kind of pissed you off that I said, what's the big deal? And that was kind of what sent you back to say, you want to see what and from that comes K&D Sessions, which we can acknowledge is a landmark piece of art.
We played a show in Munich at the Muffat Hall, where we just played now as well in the as part of the 30-year anniversary. And we played there, and it was jam-packed with 1 million people outside that couldn't get in. And after the show, after we played, a young student / journalist came to us, and he really he just said, like, what the hell? What is wrong? Why? What did you do to deserve all those people, more or less? Yes, kind of like that. So,
and he was right.
And was right. no. And now the thing was that we played. That's what I said in the beginning. We played literally in every village where there were turntables. So we played in Munich. We played around there everywhere. I think at least 50 times before we did this show. So we built an audience over the years. But this, just the way that guy asked us, this upset me so much that on the way back, we drove back in. Richard had a car, and we drove back to Vienna. And I said to him, we need to do this. We need to put everything together so that people like assholes like that can realize what we did. We worked 24/7. We DJed all the time. We made music all the time. So it was kind of like somebody's telling you, I mean, we won this in the lottery or whatever. So I was really upset. And then we came back, and then we talked to K7 about the idea, and they said, "Oh wow, sounds like a great idea." And then we started working on it, and this was also a pretty long session until we had this all together. But
Yeah.
and eventually we didn't think that we didn't expect that this was selling a million times or whatever. We were happy with would have been happy with a normal sales, like the DJ Kicks was back then. I don't know, 30 or 50,000 records.
Nobody was expecting this
expecting
thing. Nobody was expecting this whole movement. And then,
except for my mom, she always thought it would be great.
But the media jumped on it big time in Germany. So there was all the big news magazines really blew it up big time in Germany. And from there jumped over to England and to Austria as well, and then to Italy and to all the other countries in Europe. And in America, we did stuff already anyway, because we're always somehow connected to America since we've been there first mid-90s. And then we did Australia. But what I wanted to say is you still have to work the countries. You have to work your audience. You can't rely on anything. You have to go to this country, play again, perhaps smaller audience, and then build it up again. There's nobody's waiting for you. You really have to. In some countries, it's easier. You get a superstar feeling. But then if you go somewhere else, you still have to work. Yeah. And we're still lucky because we don't are reduced to our language. Because if you're a German singing band, which we have here, very good, very successful here, they're just limited to Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. And that's it. They have nobody's interested in them in America, in England, or in Holland. They can't play nowhere. So good as they are, but they're limited. They have some borders. Yeah. So that was lucky for us.
About the big brother.
I think that also your music like translates in a way that's accessible across different genres, and maybe that young person I noticed with like with electronic music, it's even now, it's still just evolving at a much more rapid pace than other genres. So if you made fans in a country and then you didn't play there for a few years, things change a lot in dance music, more than other genres. Yeah. So it's easy to get left behind. Yeah. And so I understand that needing to build. But one thing I found interesting was you said it didn't, even though it sold a lot, Richard, you said it didn't get like commercially played out. It could have. I mean, you all know there was a time where you couldn't go to any like shishi bar in a hotel or at coffee shops and high-end shopping, and your music would come on. And this is just a few years after they wouldn't press your first record. But instead of leaning into it, like a lot of artists would embrace the stardom and say yes to everything, you didn't. I mean, you famously turned down David Bowie. You stopped putting out original records for many years. Tell me about that decision, about stepping away from the wave and immersing yourself in other projects before you came back to 1995.
There was a point where the whole experience was feeling uncomfortable, to be honest. The whole fame and people go crazy and sit around you and stare at you and all this. And we were coming from somewhere else actually, and somehow it didn't feel like this is the way to go forward for us. So our decision was to concentrate on something that is actually like our beginning again. So Richard did Tosca, I did Peace Orchestra, and we started afresh with the big K&D thing bubbling on the side. And this was actually probably is one of the reasons why we're still together. because if we would have continued back then in this kind of way, where everybody wants a piece of you, I think we would have not survived, I think, as a duo. And I think this break was essential for us reaching 30 years of being together now. And it was for us, I mean, a lot of people cannot comprehend that you say no to fame, but for us, it was a necessary choice.
I think that's, probably the exception, not the rule, and it does make your journey and your career unique in that regard. I can remember when I first came I'm from Philadelphia, but I visited the Bay Area in 2002 for the first time by myself. And my very first night out in town, y'all played a place called the Galleria, really fancy multi-floor club.
Yeah.
And I was young, 23, hadn't been to a lot of nightclubs. I was more like of a hippie guy, at the time, and into psychedelic music and had found K&D in college, but I was not plugged in to the scene. I knew Thievery, I knew y'all, and I knew basically anybody that had the DJ kicks. And of course I loved LTJ Bukem, Massive Attack. What I'm saying is I did not know a whole lot. And I walked into that club that night by myself and had like a religious, spiritual experience. And, not drugs or anything, just music and humans and energy and dancing in a new city. It was post 9/11 and post tech boom here in San Francisco, but it's not like it is now. It was still a very beautiful, vibrant, colorful place to be. And that was like a really life-affirming experience. I already loved y'all music-wise, but to experience it live was like a revelation.
So that the whole 2000, from 2000 till 2010, we DJ'd together sometimes, but not that often actually. We DJ'd more alone because I discovered techno for myself in the late 90s, 98, 99. So after drum and bass, the energy I needed, I wanted to find some music that has a similar energy, but it wasn't drum and bass anymore. And so that was kind of like techno. I discovered Underground Resistance and all those great techno stuff that I didn't hear in the early 90s in here in Vienna. Even though people played it, I didn't hear it. Anyway, so I was walking in this direction. Richie was also doing house, but more in a groovy kind of direction. So, we separated there somehow, it's style-wise. But when we played together, we didn't play like we do now. Since a couple of years, the both of us were playing. Back then, we played an hour each. So I played an hour, he played an hour. So, and we did this the whole 2000 to 2010, and then we started doing our first live shows with visuals. So we had always visuals with us already in the early 90s, but back then in 2010 we did a real show where we really planned everything, where we planned the whole set, the whole visuals to go together. And this is how we kind of started really playing together again. And really doing concerts together and DJ shows and all this and that's what we do until now.
Yeah, and then somehow we found out. I mean, it sounds a bit somehow commercial, but we just found out that people, they don't want you alone. They
They wanted me, but they didn't want him.
They didn't want me, so I said, let's do it together again.
Please, Peter, come back.
Please,
Come back.
please. No, it's true. It's really true. Nobody needs a guy. Nobody needs. They want to have the whole thing.
Yeah, no,
they want to have the whole package. And
I mean, nobody cares about a Mick Jagger solo record. That's how it is. And Roger Waters also had the difficulties.
big difficulties
over the years. So no, but that's definitely a point. But the thing is, as somebody who makes music and you want to reach an audience and as much audience as possible. We want to make. It's nicer to make 2,000 people happy than 30 people. So.
And then there was one very important step was to realize that we wanted to have a sort of a club feeling as a concert earlier, like starting at 9, ending at 11:30.
Yeah.
Because of the people are getting, our audience is getting older, we're getting older and stuff, and it all makes sense not to get to bed too late.
It's too late, Del. I'm going home.
But then somehow as well for us interesting to have, because you have more focus and more concentration to listen to the music at that time other than at 2:00 at night stoned and drunk, you know what I mean? So we started with that, and that's already the last how many years, I don't know. This concept we still do, and it makes so much sense, everybody loves it.
I mean, it's amazing. The first time I saw it, I think, was this current iteration would be 2018 at the Midway in San Francisco, or 2019. It was before the pandemic. And then there was one that you had scheduled, I think, that had to be canceled because of the pandemic here in the States. And then, of course, this past summer. I have 2 more questions if you have time. 2 more, okay?
We just have to go to a dinner because our reservation is now, but shoot.
Okay, I'll try to make them brief.
It's 1995.
I wanted to just touch on the process of discovering 1995 and deciding to put it out as it was, the DAT tapes and trying to replay it and eventually just releasing music. I know you made a test pressing and then it sort of disappeared for 25 years.
We made a test pressing in about 95 of a couple of tracks, actually to play them out more than to have an album really, but it was also like looking how it would sound as a whole. And we'd used that for DJing back then, but then forgot about it. And then at one of our sessions where we prepared the show in 2017 or 18, around that time, or maybe a little bit later, we just I looked up in here up there. There's a lot of our own releases and the special bits, and we found the white label. And then we had a listen, and then when we listened, we thought this sounds really good at the moment. This feels really right, and from there came the idea to maybe get it together and put it together and look at the DATs for other bits and pieces that would also be possible. And then the whole process of maybe redoing it started, but that was Richard only started for a short period, and then we gave up because it would have made something completely different out of it, which was not actually the idea. And then we started restoring it, and I literally said quite a long time taking bits and pieces from different versions of the DATs because they are all breaking up now. It's at a certain age they lose the magnetic parts and you have dropouts and the dropouts on a DAT tape are terrible. It's like really it's not a nice sound. And then once we had this kind of together somehow, we sent it to Bernie Grundman to have it mastered by this amazing genius. And then we released it in this perfect period where everybody was at home.
and it made sense because if we made it when we started, we had the G-Stone EP, as you know, and it was based. I mean, musically, of course, we had these tracks, but the idea was a joke. You know, it was the thing with the Simon Garfunkel remake. Hey, you look like Paul Simon. I know this photo guy. Let's redo this photo. But it was a joke. It was like funny to do it. It was like, haha, yeah, somehow, whatever. It was based on that idea, somehow ironic approach. And it was the same with the 1995 because he said, I took you now how many years to bring it out again? I mean, like 25 years or something. And that made sense again because it somehow. Who brings out an album which is 20 years
but a really interesting and side note was we had in the early 90s, it was 94 maybe around 95 even, we had a lot of talk with Charles Peterson because he wanted to sign us for his Talking Loud label. And then the question was always, so when are you going to release your first record? And I jokingly said, it's not going to come out before 2017, and
which was a long time.
Which was in the mid 90s. It was a long time away, and we didn't even make that. So
that is funny. Well, I want to say that was very sacred. That record at that time, very confusing, scary time around the world. It was perfect for that record because we were home, but it was also terrifying time. Who knew what was coming, right? And we didn't know. So to get a new record from Kruder Dorfmeister, period, was enough. But for it to be an authentic, like archaeological piece of the embryo of the partnership is so sacred. To put it on, it's like you can time travel back to those times.
The world was all good still, but the world was still perfect. It was also for us. It was. I think that was probably also the reason why when we listened to it, it felt so right. Because it reminded us as well of a time that was where everything was good, where everything was still okay. And that was probably a thing. This feeling was the initiation, the initial spark to put out that thing. Yeah.
Well, we appreciated it, and it also made a lot of new fans besides your old fans that are 40, 50. There's a younger generation that plugged into Kruder and Dorfmeister because of that release, and then they work backwards. So I've enjoyed watching you make new fans. Okay, well, last question, which shouldn't be a short question, but it's going to have to be, which is Burning Man. I've been to Burning Man numerous times, my wife as well. We were not going this year.
Oh.
We were not going to go. And then I saw that y'all were going, and that's kind of like bad burner etiquette to like go for a musician or go for a concert. You go for the experience. I'm going to own that.
Yeah.
I know better.
Yeah.
However, we live in the Bay. It's 4 hours away. There was no way that y'all were going to come all the way from Vienna to play Burning Man, and then I was not going to be there. So we actually left in the middle of the week and got there, and the first thing we did was your night set, was the Thursday night set.
Oh,
yeah. Great.
Wow.
That was.
So I just wanted to ask, because I met your agent, Steve, by accident. He was frantic after the rain, stomping around the mud. He stopped to ask us a question, and we ended up talking. And I found out that he was your agent. So it's just kind of a small world. And obviously everybody knows, they read the news reports, all the crazy experiences. I just, as much as or as little as you want to share, why did you come to Burning Man this year? Like, why after all these years? And any reflections you care to share about that crazy experience?
Yeah, we got offered Burning Man already like in the 90s. So it was always around for us somehow. It was always like, it was always there. As in the 90s, not at late 90s, say, when it really first started. I remember Adam Freeman coming to us at a show, and he said, I've been to Burning Man, you have to do this. This is the best thing ever. So this was always around, and somehow we had this opportunity that really went along. We actually planned our tour at that time anyway. So it was kind of like it was really happening just very naturally. Hey, you could come a couple of days before to Burning Man, which would be great. And we always kind of wanted to experience it. And the thing is, I have to say for myself, I was a little bit scared before I went there, because I didn't know if I can deal with the whole situation, millions of people in a tent or in an RV, and having to share a shower and all this, But once I was there, it felt amazing. It felt really amazing. And the first night we played was probably one of the best gigs we ever had. The first one on the Soul Sonic stage was just from the sheer energy that was there from the people. We started, there was 200 people. 10 minutes later, there were 2,000 people, or even more, I don't know. And then we saw all the art cars in the back coming, and they all made movements. They danced to our set. It was. I get goosebumps talking about it.
She's just like you would be, but she's on us. She's on us. And she stands there singing for money. On it. On it.
And just in regards to the rain, which was coming later, we were so lucky to play on that day. It was pure luck.
Yeah.
And then we fight. I remember we were fighting to play outside the booth, because first they wanted to put us in this booth because of the equipment. Yeah, the equipment with the sand, that it doesn't get damaged. And we said, nah, hey, we have, and then we had all these sort of outfits prepared, especially for the Burning Man. So we wanted to show that as well.
We were looking really good. So we wanted people to see us as well.
And then at the end, they really put us outside, and that was just the perfect day. And it was then probably, it was then the day before the rain came.
Yeah, it was the rain. And then we played the morning as well, the sunset at District.
And then the rain came.
And then we came home. We drove home. We were for us, the crazy thing was we were totally jet lagged. So we came because we came almost directly from Vienna to Burning Man. So we still were on Viennese time. So this was completely messing with us anyway. And then we after the District set, we were totally tired but super happy, and we went home into the RV. Took a nap, and then we woke up to the mud. And then all of a sudden everything was like, wow, okay,
Tens of thousands of people are being told to shelter in place at the popular Burning Man festival because they are literally stuck in the mud. They're trapped after a rare heavy rain inundated campsites in Nevada's Black Rock Desert. Thick, ankle-deep mud is making it impossible to walk or drive, and more rain is now likely this afternoon.
Everything changes, and for us, it was kind of cool. There was a moment on Saturday where they said to us, you probably cannot leave before Thursday. And our tour started on Thursday in Los Angeles. And we were trying, we were trying to get in touch with our travel agency to get us flights to go from Reno to Los Angeles again. And everything was booked. Everything was gone. So we didn't know how to, there was a moment there. But then on Sunday, everything cleared up. We found flights, and then on Monday, everything we could leave. And for me, also the experience was when the shit hit the fan, the people were amazing. The community was great. Really, everybody was caring, taking care of each other. You need some water, you need this, you need food, you need shelter, you need anything. People were helping each other. This made it even better. The thing was, I think that's what I'm telling people now when I talk about it. For me, the rain made it even better. It would have been a great experience, but to have this kind of experience under those circumstances where people are even better and nicer, and everybody grows to the occasion. It was a beautiful experience. It was really, really great. And I'm super happy that we're both super happy that we did it. And the set there was just, unfortunately, it's not recorded.
Yeah. But I didn't even know that the Burning Man has this is such a meaningful thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I just stumbled in, really.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And then when we arrived, there was a thing said, this is not a festival.
Yeah.
This is not a typical music festival.
Yeah.
And slowly I understood what they mean, that it's more like a state of mind, the whole thing. There's something, it's a special thing that you have to understand. And I'm happy that I've been there, because now I know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
And it's
Definitely.
And that it has such a big importance in America. I was not aware of, because to everybody we say, can we play the Burning Man? They were like, whoa, Burning Man.
Yeah. Everywhere. And then with the experience afterwards, it was even crazier.
I'm grateful that you came, because we went because y'all were playing. And other than my first year, the rain year was the most rewarding for all the reasons you said. I had grown a little jaded by it after so many years, and the too cool for school and the Instagram photos. It's a lot, right? But this year it was like the rain was the great equalizer.
Also, the thing, you just said it. The years before, we experienced Burning Man through Instagram and through the socials and people posing and all this. But and this puts it in a different light, actually, that it really is. And once we went there.
Yeah, I think that's why they don't book us anymore, because we brought the rain,
No, no. But that's what to finish it. That's what once I was there, I realized there's a few people doing that, of course, but in general, the people have a different idea about it and act accordingly. And I mean, we spoke to some of the guys who make those art cars. I mean, they work the whole year to put this on. I mean, the effort that goes into the whole festival, actually, the whole experience, festival is wrong, but the whole experience is amazing. It's just mind blowing. And we would definitely do it again. if the stars align right, we definitely would do it again.
I think we have to leave
Yeah, we
now.
have to leave now.
I understand. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was a full circle thing for me. You introduced me to electronic music. Burning Man really kind of gave me the passion. And then to see you play Burning Man, full circle. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. This was a great honor and privilege.
Let us know when this is out, so we can send it out and
Oh, I will. That would be
put
great.
it on our socials.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your dinner, and I look
Thank
forward to whatever you're
Thank you.
making in the studio.
Yeah. And next time we come to the States, we play now in the States soon, but you're not gonna be there anywhere.
Denver. I think I'm going to still try to fly out. We already did the
Denver.
interview. Yeah, I have friends there.
All right.
I'm making a trip. I'll let you know.
Okay, let us know and then we hook up.
I would love that.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you much.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Tell her try your best just to make it quick. Format into the sick. Cause there must be something she can do. This heart is broken in two. Tell her it's a case of emergency. There's a patient by the name of Gregory.
Had to dig deep on this one. Wow. Yep, that's an official Kruder Dorfmeister. Night Nurse, the Cool Ruler, Gregory Isaacs, from back in '97. I had to dig deep because that was a out-of-body experience. Just having the opportunity to sit across the digital glass from those two fine gentlemen, talk about their careers, talk about their journey, listen to them laugh, rib each other, play the dozens, and take us on all the rabbit holes, all the different stories and painting the picture. And, you know, that was a different kind of interview for me because, of course, I'm a huge fan for 25 plus years now, but I'm not from over there. I've never been over there. I was not immersed in the scene that they sprouted out of, that they created, that they built a foundation for. So I did my homework. You know, I was in the internet wayback machine, the Wire magazine article from '97 about the Vienna scene. I dove into that and read some sites that had to be translated from German or Dutch, and also, you know, listen to the music with the big ears. And, you know, this kind of came together relatively quickly. I mean, I wrote that article over the summer, in the fall, right after Burning Man, and then the show in San Francisco. So the article came out around middle of September, and, you know, Kruder Dorfmeister's been omnipresent in my life all this time, you know. So, like I said, I trained my whole life for this shit. At the same time, it came up really quick. I pitched the idea of doing it at a show, but wasn't going to work out. Zoom it was the very next day. And they showed up, and they were like, you know, it took a second, much like Rogers with Blind Melon, who I didn't know either. It took a second for us to get the flow, but I feel like they were disarming and jovial and just an absolute joy to just listen to them wax nostalgic and pontificate and giggle, you know. And this music's very personal to me. It was a gateway drug for me with electronic music at a very pivotal, embryonic, nascent time in my life. And much like Blind Melon, has been with me all along. So to have an opportunity to actually build with and reason and communicate and dialogue with Peter and Richard, it's like life outside of life. Because back in 98-ish, maybe early 99, the homie Ross Kaufman, who played me Fish Rift for the first time, also was the guy to put me on to K&D, specifically the K&D sessions. And, you know, we used to do this thing called the route, which was where we just like drove in a circle and blazed trees. It was in my hometown, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. There's like a country club drive, it's called. True story. And it's 2.5 mile loop with one stop sign. So basically, if you do like, you know, 27 or so miles an hour, it takes you a good while to make the loop. So you can make a few loops and you can puff a few bowls or chillums. You know, that's what we were doing back in those days. Hand blown glass, kid. And what I remember is that Ross played me the K&D sessions as we chiefed, you know, my Burlington, Vermont perp, his Colorado tree. And this was so brand new. And I was very new to electronic music, like whatsoever. I remember I had like the Rave Till Dawn compilation CD, which by the way has an incredible Sade drum and bass remix. Remind me to play that on another show. But I digress. Got hip to K&D through Ross. Eternal thanks. Much like the fish from Vermont. We drove the route. And if you were somebody who wanted to find your homies on the route, and this goes back to like pre-cell phone days, the route only went in one direction, which was counterclockwise. So if you wanted to meet up with your homies and get baked, and you called one of the houses, it was like, oh yeah, Ross picked Brian up, because I didn't drive in those days, at least until I was like 19. Story for another time. But I always got picked up because I had the good grass. And so this is probably, I'm 20, so I'm driving by then, but Ross was driving on this particular occasion. It was like the keys to a new beginning. And I remember, like, you know, what I was going to say before is that if you wanted to meet up your homies and they were driving the route, you drove clockwise against the route. You drove clockwise, and then you could spot your friend's vehicle, pull over, park, hop in, and commence route. Rinse, repeat. It's a time-honored tradition for the hometown homies, so it's also how I got hip to lots of new music, because we'd come home from college. You know, we just started it in high school. It was like passed down from like the older brothers of Ross and other people. Bequeathed to us the route, so we continued it on, and I frankly, if anyone was still in Cherry Hill, we'd still be routing. But we got hip to a lot of music that way. Fat Mama from Boulder, Colorado was another one Ross brought home, and you know, LTJ Bukem was one we got into that way, and it's just a really, really fertile time for electronic music. And K&D were pioneers, and I came to San Francisco in 2002. Now I'd loved them for a few years. I had all their CDs. There were 3 of them. K&D Sessions, DJ Kicks, and G-Stone. And my very first night in San Francisco, I flew out here to do a bunch of stuff. I went to Colorado, and then I came out to the Bay, then back to Colorado. It's a big adventure in the life of a young lion. And BG's big adventure, if you will. So my very first night out in San Francisco, solo mission, went to K&D. First time I ever saw them live. They played this place called the Galleria, which is a very like shishi, highfalutin kind of joint back then. And now they don't do DJ stuff there anymore. You can get a wedding there, or like some kind of special, you know, palatial ball. But in those days, I guess they were doing opulent DJ nights, and this would fall squarely in that category. So I came to San Francisco, like, you know, dropped my bags, Noe Valley, went out, and had like a unbelievable experience. You know, I was not hip to club culture or really anything of the sort. I was like a Fish kid, a Deadhead, a Beastie Boy, and showed up K&D at the Galleria, and it was like a landmark experience for me. I didn't move out here for another decade plus, and my first Burning Man was in 2013, and that was really when I waded into the deep end and got, like neck deep into electronic music, and discovered so much that I had no idea was even going on. But the reason I had like the ears and the tools to embrace this new topography was thanks to people like Kruder Dorfmeister. And so, I've been enjoying electronic music ever since in a much more profound way. And so to bring it full circle, K&D, as you heard, went to Burning Man for the first time. We weren't even going to go. We just couldn't figure out how to make it work. But the deluge of cheap/free tickets, and then K&D going out there, and yes, as I owned in the interview, that is bad form, bad burner etiquette, but we had gifts to give and energy to bring, and I make no apologies. And we were able to go out there and experience K&D, which you heard, it was one of their favorite gigs ever. And so that was just a full circle moment in itself. It was their first burn. It was us going back to the burn. I got to enjoy it with Alicia. K&D is a big soundtrack to our lives. So it was all that and so much more that I can't even put into words. And to be able to just reflect on that with them in such a way was profound, was rewarding, heart-filling, inspiring. And I owe it all to Richard and Peter for making the time and sharing the stories and energy and allowing me to make this podcast and also that article and just sort of like capture and chronicle an element of my own musical expedition, journey, evolution, and put that into words and put that into podcast format. That's important. I needed an opportunity and a reason, and the stars aligned, and here we are. And I'm so grateful, and got us back to the playa, which was special on other levels. Got to take James Casey to the temple, and K&D played a role in that. And then you hear about how, their perception of Burning Man going in and what their lived experience was in spite of or because of the rain and the mud. And, I think they probably might have hooked them when I named my article to Weather the Rain, which is a sample that they use on K&D sessions. But now you're hearing Shaolin Satellite. In between, we did Black Baby from DJ Kicks. I've been trying to think about how to wrap this up, because like we always do about this time, the Vibe Junkie jams, and it's really hard to pick. I've been playing a little of this, little of that the whole time. We're now on Shaolin Satellite, which was the Thievery Corporation song that K&D remixed and put on DJ Kicks. There was so much I wanted to continue talking to them about. I did not even get a third of the way through the topics, but sometimes you just gotta play it footloose and fancy free and just have a conversation instead of a question by question interview. So that's seems to be how it goes when I talk to my heroes or people that I loved for all my whole life and since I was just a youngster. So we're gonna go with two songs. I feel like two songs that really define the sound of Kruder Dorfmeister for me. As a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna go with 3. Let's do 3. 3 is a magic number, right? 2 songs that by their hand, and then we should do 1 song that they like to spin. So I'm gonna start with the Count Basic Speechless drum and bass remix by Kruder Dorfmeister from K&D Sessions. And then I'm going to follow that one up with another track from the K&D Sessions, which is a Useless. So Speechless into Useless. And Useless is a Depeche Mode remix, which is some of the dearest and most sacred of all their work to me, is that remix that just emotionally resonant, and it's dark and foreboding, but also really, really like deep and loving, and it's like self-aware and also like self-defeating and also empowering. It's all the things. So I love Useless, Depeche Mode, K&D remix. And then I think to bring it on home, something I heard them do in San Francisco on the 30th anniversary, which is a soul-stirring version of, or emotional reimagining, I think is how I put it in the article, Roy Ayers' Everybody Loves the Sunshine. So it's Netski's remix, but we get the real thing in the intro. I think I'm going to pull it out of one of their live sets. So yeah, I'm going to finish with a nod to the great Roy Ayers, Netski, Everybody Loves the Sunshine. And that'll do it for episode 75. We hit 30,000 downloads not long ago. Continuing onward and upward. Give thanks for everybody who tunes in, who supports, reviews, subscribes, sends me a few dollars for making you holla. Give thanks to all y'all. I want to say goodbye, God bless, eternal gratitude, Richard Dorfmeister, Peter Kruder. Lots of links in the show notes. Love y'all, and we'll see you next time. Yes, indeedy.
echoing. Echoing in my mind. stand the accused with your fist in my face. Feeling tired and with the bitterest taste.
of the sunshine.